it was hard. You're like, oh gosh, hey, we'll try to do our
Stressful.
best, but we don't. Even as an
people
agent, you're like,
they're in a
I can't
moving
predict the
van,
market,
all ready to go.
you know?
Like, is it fun there?
It's
The lender has like,
It is
they get
stressful.
clear to close.
Welcome to the iBuyer experiment. There is so much going on. We have a jam-packed episode for you today. Let's start with the Silicon Valley Bank collapse because it has been all the news over the past few days. And what do we know? What do we know about the Silicon Valley Bank collapse?
I think we're all still trying to figure it out. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of different things out there, a lot of different
information.
Yeah. So, I mean, I listen to a lot of independent media podcasts, that you wouldn't consider mainstream, and they definitely have their own thoughts of what's going on, which is probably a little bit different than the typical narrative.
So, well, the typical narrative was that there was a bank run, and regulators came in and shut down Silicon Valley Bank on Friday. And what we learned is that they had purchased just an astronomical amount of mortgage-backed securities back when interest rates were near zero, and the yield on them was a percent and a half, and so they just didn't have the capital to cover their deposits. And so when that happened, kind of what we learned is a lot of the startups in Silicon Valley the word started to spread, like, take your money out. And Silicon Valley Bank is notorious for being a startup bank. So they were the bank for Open Door when they started. In fact, one of the early founders of Open Door, Keith Rabois, had tweeted a few years ago, like, thanks to Silicon Valley Bank for getting Open Door up, because if it wasn't for them, Open Door probably wouldn't be what Open Door is today. So we know that they were heavily invested or heavily an integral part of a lot of technology companies.
Yeah. We had a couple of companies that we work with, partners, that basically said, don't send us your payments anymore. Send them over here or figure it out later, because they bank with Silicon Valley Bank, so kind of affected as well.
Yeah, it was, I don't know how about you guys, but when we got those emails, I was like, oh my goodness, like, we're a part of this. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's one of the podcasts that I had listened to for startups. They were saying not only for just the tech world, but I guess I didn't verify this number. I'm taking his word for the information that he put out on the podcast. There was over 1,500 startup of alternative and clean energy companies that they invested in. So he had some of the people that were on that podcast were thinking that it goes a lot deeper than maybe there was a lot of bad investments that were made. And, that'll, as people keep digging into it, it might come out that, like, hey, you guys made some really bad investments here. And then, of course, there's people who think they should be bailed out, and there's people who don't think they should. But it doesn't really seem like they're trying to call it a bailout.
No, they're
Even
not.
though it is a bailout.
It's a backstop.
It's
a bailout.
It's a backstop.
Well, they're saying no taxpayer dollars will go towards the making the depositors whole.
How is that possible?
They're saying that it's coming from DIF. I don't know what it stands for. It's the Federal Insurance Fund. And they're going to basically charge banks fees, and they have enough in the DIF account to cover these depositors. So we're thinking that, if that's the case, then they're saying that's not going to be taxpayer money. But it's interesting, too, because you're also reading about the bonuses that a lot of these executives at Silicon Valley Bank received last year. They just got their bonuses last week.
Oh, they knew it. They cashed out like almost $4 million worth of their stocks.
Yeah.
That's not coincidental at all.
Yeah. So there's probably going to be some repercussions for those individuals. I would not want to be them. But, I think what I found to be very interesting was when you start to hear the commentary on why this happened and what's going to happen going forward, you start to learn that the Fed raising the federal fund rate by 75 basis points over and over again last year really had a negative impact on these banks and their liquidity profiles. And so what I found to be interesting is this could have an impact on mortgage rates could make mortgage rates go down, which it already has.
It has, yeah.
So what we know is when mortgage rates go down, we're going to have more buyers into the marketplace. When more buyers come into the marketplace, they're going to be choosing from a very limited number of homes available, right? And what's going to happen to the real estate market? That's what I want to touch on.
I think we're going to see a boom, right? Big boom right now. I don't know.
A little boom, a micro boom.
I think that's...
It was at like 7%. Now we're like at 6.5%. So like it went 2 days. It went down a half point to almost 0.75%. And I mean it's the 10-year Treasury is going up a little bit more today, but
barely though, like just a little.
Yeah, but I think we're gonna see people locking in some rates. I see all the lenders out there doing TikToks and Instagrams saying, hey, mortgage rates are down, jump in.
Yeah.
All right, so. We'll see.
Good.
We'll see what I would love to see showing times right now. Their data look like.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, we should hop on there and see what foot traffic is looking like, and would it have increased that quickly? Right, like this all just happened. Like, how long would it take for buyers to kind of re-enter the marketplace?
Yeah, I wish I had nerves of steel. I would have like a lot of these other banks that were that are like mid-sized banks, regional banks. Their stocks got hammered, and now they're all just
back up,
right back up. You would have like bought a bunch of stock in some of these regional banks. Man, made a lot of money in the last couple of days.
Well, gold went way up.
Yeah.
Did crypto? I have not been following.
It's on the move. It's like at 26. I mean, it's not.
It hasn't changed too much.
So it went from like 20,000, 21,000 to like 20. I think it's at 26,000 now. Bitcoin. Bitcoin.
Are you trying to like beatbox that?
Bitcoin.
Hey.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting time. I think you add in all of the other macroeconomic uncertainties to this mix, and it just seems like the perfect storm for something kind of cataclysmic. But we will wait and see what happens. The Fed is meeting at the end of the month, and talk was before the collapse of SVB that they were going to raise rates, and it was going to be an aggressive rate raise. Now it's kind of up in the air.
There's some people saying that they're not going to raise it at all.
Goldman Sachs said that, right?
Yeah.
I think that they will. I think that they're at least going to raise by 25 basis points. Inflation numbers came out today. The CPI rose ever so slightly, but as anticipated. So that's good news.
Yeah.
I think it's going to ultimately determine what, and I'm not saying, the mainstream media has the biggest influence. They do. And I think it's going to come down to what narrative is going to be pushed out. What information do they want the masses to get to? Is it everything's good, nothing to worry about?
I think that's what they said when they said they're going to backstop this bank.
Yeah, or they're going to be like, oh, hey, go bank run on your own bank, and then all of a sudden it causes all these other banks, all of a sudden now they can't fulfill people taking out their money. There's a lot of people that think that's going to happen, but there's always different narratives, right?
Uh-huh.
So we'll see. I think we'll know hopefully in the next by the end of the month kind of what this is going to look like.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was thinking about, okay, so you're a startup, like as we are. Well, I'd consider ourselves a growth company at this point because we've been at this for a few years. However, you have your money in your bank, and a lot of these companies also had lines of credit. And so they're
banking on those.
Right, exactly. They may have had a few million in the bank, which was great, but they may have also had, several million in a line of credit, and they were banking on those lines of credit to like keep payroll and to kind of get through these leaner times. And so I think that is an interesting aspect, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
It's going to affect a lot of people.
I agree.
A lot of businesses.
I agree. So when it comes to selling your home, Zillow and the Harris poll came out with a new survey that said that 84% of first-time home sellers regretted certain aspects of the home sale process. And so they surveyed them on what these regrets are, and I thought we could kind of unpack them and talk about how we can gain insights as to what we can do in our market so that our sellers don't have regrets when listing with us.
Yeah.
You guys ready to dive in?
Yeah,
I am.
Okay,
Regret
so
number one.
The number one regret that home sellers had was pricing their home incorrectly. 39% said that they wished they had set a higher list price.
Oh.
Wow, well,
that
doesn't
when was
surprise me.
this?
So this was of 2022 and 2021 home sellers.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I see that. So they got bid up, and they probably thought, oh, man, maybe if I would have put it higher, someone would have taken it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That makes more. I was like, now?
Yeah, no.
I was like,
Not now.
it was like,
That makes
I
more
mean,
sense,
most home sellers want to chase the market, right? Because they don't know any better, and then sometimes the agent's not able to educate them properly, or just sometimes it's like, all right, hey, we can do it, but let's reconvene after certain time period about that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean,
I think if you have a good product, it's priced under or well, you're gonna have more buyers wanting the property. So yeah, I don't see why you would want to have it priced higher.
Well, we know how sellers can be. I mean, we've had a few where like the sellers have wanted to increase prices, like it's on the market, it's not selling, and they're like, "Well, we should increase it."
like, hey,
You're
Makes
like,
no sense. But
no, it's not hitting that mark there.
right,
The 400,000 mark. We need to bring up the 400,000. So
Yeah.
there's more buyers up there, right?
that makes a lot of sense. So, but one thing that I thought when I read this report and I looked at this data, I thought, wow, our cash plus offer really allows sellers to feel confident that they got the highest amount possible.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
yeah, especially if they don't want to deal with the process. I mean, everyone. It's not always about the money, but at the same time, it's also always about the money because there's other factors into it than just that. But based on results, often harsh, always fair, the house is ultimately going to sell for the highest price possible based on its current condition if it's listed on the open market. So from that aspect, that's why the Cash Plus is so powerful, because it's like, hey, we listed on the market. We found that most of the time owner-occupant buyer who is going to be willing to pay, the highest price possible based on market demand. So,
Yep.
I agree. I thought so too. All right. So regret number 2 was ignoring online curb appeal.
Oh,
Yeah.
what does that
And
mean?
so what they
Let's
said was
break that down.
nearly 9 in 10 sellers thought that something could have helped them get a higher sales price, and 2 in 5 thought that better listing photos could have boosted their bottom line, while 1 in 4 thought that a virtual tour could have helped them sell their home faster.
Boom. Yeah, that's why we do twilight photos of all the front. The front makes it look so much better with the fire in the sky.
The
nice
Photoshop sunset.
Yeah.
They definitely that hit the nail on the head, because it is all about online presence. That's where home buyers are going to first possibly meet their home.
Right.
If it looks like crap, even if it's a nice place, move on to the next. I'm the exact same way, unless I just knew something about that house.
It's got that picture of the rearview mirror on the car, like
Yeah.
you see the
In the
the
side
part
of it.
the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Or
terrible.
or the hand with the camera, but you can't see their face
Yeah.
with the cell phone. It's amazing that you still see that these days. I
And a
see
lot,
I see it
too.
less and less
Yes.
than 5 to 10 years ago, of course.
Yeah, but you still see the people in the mirror, in the
I just-
bathroom.
I think what
Yeah.
baffles me too, especially, and not to say that every property should get the exact same type of pictures, right? And you shouldn't say one property, but of course, when higher end properties, when they don't have them, heck yeah, I guarantee you it affects that.
Yep, 100%.
I agree. Okay, so that was regret number 2. Regret number 3, and this one's super interesting, was bad timing. 25% wish they had listed their home at a different time. It goes on to say that timing the sale of a home with the purchase of a new one is one of the biggest stressors for sellers. Nearly 2 out of 5 first-time sellers say selling their home on their timeline and or with a flexible closing date was a top priority, and that was more than the share of sellers who prioritized getting top dollar.
And that is why the Cash Plus is king in our industry.
I know. I like want to hear what you guys have to say about this.
King. Yes.
Well, 100%. I mean, think about it just back in the day, right? Being more of a traditional listing agent. It was hard. You're like, oh gosh, hey, we'll try to do our best,
Stressful.
but we don't. Even
got
as an
people with
agent, you're
they're,
like,
they're in a
I can't
moving
predict the
van
market.
all ready to go.
you know?
Like, is it
And
fun
so,
there?
yeah, it's
The lender has like, you know,
It
do they-
is
do they get clear
stressful.
to close?
especially when you can't hit their timeline based on XYZ circumstances. It is not fun. So yeah, if you have a product that you be able to completely avoid that, still benefit from the open market and close on your timeline, it's not just because it's something that we're a part of. Hands down, this is the best product I've ever seen in the real
This is
estate
the
industry.
worst conversation to have to a seller or a buyer of a new property, saying you're going to have to take your 8 dogs, your cat, and your 2 kids and stay in a hotel tonight, and we'll have to figure it out what's going on tomorrow.
I've
That's-
almost been there
it's-
myself.
I've been
Yeah,
there.
we've been there. We've been there. It
Multiple
sucks.
times. It's
all my shit in a moving truck,
Yes.
and I didn't know if we were going to close, and I'm like,
oh, you personally
Yeah,
were there.
you've been there
I've
yourself.
experienced it
You
myself,
lived it
right? But
yourself.
this is back in the day before the cash offer stuff was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith just said something that I want to double tap on. And he said that the Cash Plus is like the best product that he's ever seen for real estate. And I agree. It really is. It really gives the seller all the certainty and convenience of a cash offer while still allowing them to benefit from the open market. So that was such a good insight. All right, regret number 4. So regret number 4 that home sellers had was skimping on repairs. And it said more than a quarter of sellers, 25%, think that they could have gotten a higher sales price if they had invested more in home improvements and repairs.
What a concept.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I say
My house
this
looks nice.
I
They're
say
going to
this
want it.
right before this podcast. So it's been crazy here at Zoodealio, and Keith and Jason have been deep in final reviews of property acquisition. So kind of how it works is we work with partner buyers. When the properties kind of bubble up and offers are made and they're tentatively accepted, then a home inspector goes out and home inspector does their job. And we work with a wonderful company that just does amazing home inspections all across the United States. And then once that's done and the final review happens, it's usually Keith and Jason that are part of that final review. And right before this podcast, you guys are final reviewing several properties, and one in particular you showed me was just a mess.
It was a mess.
Yep.
And I think of like all of these repairs that homeowners like forego, and they don't make these repairs, and then you got like disconnected plumbing under the house. Like one of them, the inspector wouldn't even go under in the crawl space because there was a leak, a sewage leak.
Ugh. Yeah. Bad.
Yeah, I guess it's really wild how common it is.
Yep.
Yeah, well, because people have they buy a house, they're cash poor, they have equity in the house, but equity is not going to make the repairs,
Right.
right? They got to have cash to do it. So, yeah, I mean, so we do find a lot of property, or have a lot of properties where they're a big mess, and we got to come in there and do the 20-year maintenance that has been sitting there forever and getting it ready for sale. But it's either that or you sell it to a wholesaler or a flipper that is going to take a very deep cut into your profits.
Way deeper cut.
Way deeper, yeah, because they're gonna have to pay to repair it, and then
they're taking on the risk,
they're
too.
taking all the risk,
Yeah.
and all the time that it takes to repair it, and all the time that your capital's out while the repairs are being done, and then you're after reselling it. So it's a bigger risk. So they want higher margins on those types of properties. Whereas we can have them, we can get the bids, get stuff put together before we close, and right when it closes, the repairs are done, and we replace it on the market. It's definitely a lot better than selling to a wholesaler or a flipper.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's another beautiful thing why the product is perfect for this market, any market really, but just being able to list a property is to be able to improve it, because then that will result based on whatever improvements, the property selling for the highest price possible. But even in certain circumstances like that, let's just face the facts. might not make 100% sense to go and address all this stuff. What might make more sense is to make sure that the property is going to be purchased and priced accordingly with the market based on its condition, and the fact that it would still be listed in that MLS. It's going to still be put out, to the maximum amount of, buyer eyeballs, and it probably will still sell for higher than selling to a flipper.
Oh,
I
yeah,
agree.
100%.
Right. If you're on the open market, yes. And
Because
so
a lot of these flippers will just buy this, or the wholesalers, they'll buy the really crappy ones. They'll get it as deep as possible. Then they go try to find another flipper to buy it and take a little chunk of it. So, open market is always the best concept.
agree. Well, those were the top 4 regrets. I added a 5th regret, and this was a selfish regret I added, and that was home sellers wished that they could see all of their offers and options in one place.
That's right.
That's a Kayla ad, but I really believe that they need it.
I guarantee you, and if they get under contract on a property and they ended up finding out that they had other options, I guarantee you there's a little bit of regret.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So, and it's becoming more common in our market all across the country. So I think that is huge. If that's not one now, it'll probably will be in the next couple years.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you make a decision and you do something, but you didn't have all of the information to make that decision, then once you learn that you had other options, you're gonna regret that.
Hey, that's anything in life. I just recently had some car stereo stuff done, and I ended up discovering that they didn't give me all my options, and it was frustrating because I went to a different shop and got a second opinion. I'm like, okay, so it's just anything in life, right? We love options, variety.
Right.
That's the spice of life.
I agree. I agree. So, if you're listening and you're curious how Zoodealio could help you and your business, go to Zoodealio.com, click the Book a Live demo. You can connect with one of our reps. We got James, we got Austin, we got Jeremy. We got a lot of cool people that would love to give you a one-on-one demo, show you how Zoodealio works and how it can serve you in your business.
All right, guys. And also make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little bell thing, right?
Yeah.
All those things.
Yep.
And ask us some questions, we'd like to answer them.
Hey, and we love haters too. Remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put your hating
Give us your
comment down there.
hate. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys.